We acknowledge that we are in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Maliseet people first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of land and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Maliseet title and established rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship among nations. Let's reflect a little bit on the word emancipation. That word is derived from the Latin, and it implies the release of someone from somebody else's authority. For example, the release of a son or a wife from the legal authority that a man had over them under ancient Roman law. Emancipation also implies freedom not only from someone else's control, but freedom to make decisions and choices for oneself. So I invite you now to pause a little bit and reflect, or as we say in Jamaica, hold a meditation. Let us be thankful for the freedoms that we now enjoy. Let us spare a thought for those experiencing modern-day forms of slavery, such as human trafficking. And let us reflect and let us resolve to do our part in the ongoing efforts for full emancipation, full freedom for all. Why should we celebrate emancipation? This feature on emancipation is brought to us by the Jamaican Cultural Association of Nova Scotia. JCANS was established in 2012 at the encouragement of the former Jamaican High Commissioner to Canada, the Honorable Sheila Monteith. JCANS started with the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Jamaica's independence. Since then, JCANS has spearheaded an annual event that celebrates Caribbean heritage and the achievements and contributions of Caribbean people in the context of Nova Scotia. JCANS has been open and enjoyed collaboration with African Nova Scotian groups, as well as provincial and federal bodies and the people of goodwill, especially those who are promoting equity for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our land. JCANS president is Mrs. Olive Phillips, and she now brings us a greeting and reflection on emancipation.
Tonight, JCANS is proud to collaborate with our members to produce a video on the topic of emancipation. The contents of this program will help us to educate the present generation about the struggles of our ancestors during enslavement by the transatlantic slave trade and how they dealt with the dehumanizing treatment. Their resilience shone through throughout the difficult struggles. Their captors did not crush their spirit. In our generation, we have much for which to be thankful. We have freedom for self-determination, which they did not have. They showed resilience and courage and determination to survive and break free from the shackles of slavery. And in our generation, our challenge is to break free from the bonds of mental slavery. By perseverance, they overcame. We are encouraged to show determination and persistence as we face the struggles of racism in our society. In the confrontation between the stream and the rock, the stream always wins, not through strength, but through persistence. Let us be like the stream and succeed.
Both Emancipation Day and Independence Day are celebrated in Jamaica. Emancipation Day on August 1st and Independence Day on August 6th. In keeping with the advocacy of Senator Wanda Bernard, Nova Scotia this year, 2021, officially recognizes and celebrates Emancipation Day for the first time. Emancipation from enslavement was granted to people of African descent in the British colonies in 1834. We honor those who sacrificed, who lobbied, and who fought for an end to the trade in enslaved Africans, and then for the abolition of legal enslavement. We honor those who inspire us to remember these ancestors and to commemorate and celebrate their achievements.
Emancipation Day is the day that we recognize when the British Parliament abolished slavery, August 1st, 1834. Now we are nationally recognizing Emancipation Day in Canada. This means that Canada is acknowledging this full history of the presence of African people, the enslavement of African people, but also the expressed freedom of African people. It's important for us to formally recognize the day, to pause to give thanks to our ancestors for the sacrifices they made, and also for the strength, the resistance, the resilience, all of those legacies that they have given to us. It's also an important day for us to reflect on where we are and to plan actions for how we build a better, more promising future for the future generations. Thank you for taking time today to remember and to reflect on our true freedom.
Hi, I'm Mayor Mike Savage of Halifax. I want to thank you all for being here today to recognize and celebrate Emancipation Day and Jamaica's 58th year of independence. Emancipation Day allows us to learn about the history of slavery in our own country and provide an understanding of how the institution of slavery laid the foundation for systemic racism experienced by people of African descent present day. JCANS annual celebration provides an opportunity to showcase Jamaican culture through music performances, Q&A panelists, and some virtual tours through history. Head on over to the Jamaican Cultural Association Nova Scotia website to see the list of virtual events. Thank you very much.
European nations seeking power and wealth set out to expand their countries by exploring and conquering other nations. An important period of European expansion started in the 15th century, leading to the presence of Europeans in the Caribbean and the Americas, and rivalry between these nations for dominance. The enslavement of the indigenous peoples and later the enslavement of Africans were means by which cheap labor was acquired to fuel the European ambitions for agricultural products and raw materials. Enslavement was a brutal experience of torture, loss of freedom, and even death. Families were destroyed and communities set asunder. Within the British Empire, On the 25th of March, 1807, the British Parliament passed the act to abolish the slave trade in the colonies. Thereafter, no British ship was allowed to engage in trafficking in human beings. Freedom from enslavement became effective in the British Empire on August 1st, 1834. The British Empire at the time included countries in the Caribbean and Canada. The impulse for emancipation and efforts to end enslavement were present in Canada as well as in the Caribbean.
Old pirates, yes, they robbed I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had are my redemption songs, my redemption songs. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Ooh, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had are my redemption songs, oh my redemption song, oh my redemption song.
Some of the key figures who resisted the enslavement of Africans. What we are sure of is that the enslavement of human beings was not accepted without protest, without objection, and without even fighting to achieve freedom. Africans were among those who fought against enslavement. In the context of the French Revolution, Haiti, a former French colony, launched their own bid for freedom between 1791 and 1804. The Haitian Republic was declared on January 1, 1804. Key figures in the revolution included Boukman Dotti, Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Haiti, as an independent republic, offered freedom to any enslaved African reaching its shores. And this gave impetus to the wider struggle for freedom throughout the Caribbean and the world. In the British colonies, resistance to enslavement was experienced, for example, in Jamaica by the Maroons, starting in the 17th century, later by Sam Sharp, and others who are named, and some whose names we don't know. Other Africans, for example in Barbados, also revolted. One famous slave revolt was the Bussa Revolt in the 19th century. Women's roles in resisting enslavement is also something that is being explained more and more, and certainly we know that in the carrying of information and even in the physical fighting, women as well as men participated. And here in Canada, there was resistance also. There is a well-known case of an enslaved African woman, Chloe Cooley. She was held at Fort Erie and Queenstown in Upper Canada in the late 1700s. Chloe Cooley resisted, struggled, screamed, and made a fuss as her owner forced her onto a boat in order to sell her. This was about 1793. He planned to sell her across the Niagara River into the United States. These people I have named and many other Africans refused to accept enslavement. But there were also white allies who resisted enslavement. People like Wilberforce, the Quakers, Anglicans, who in the United Kingdom fought in the Parliament, first to end the trade in Africans and then to end the institution of slavery altogether. And here in Canada, John Graves Simcoe, then Lieutenant Governor of Upper Canada, saw what happened to Chloe Cooley, and his indignation and upset at the abuse experienced by Chloe Cooley inspired him to enact laws within the Assembly to ameliorate the conditions of Africans who were enslaved on Canadian soil. And so, in 1793, the Assembly passed the Act to limit slavery in Upper Canada. There were others. For example, in Demerara, in what is now known as Guyana, there was a missionary, Reverend John Smith, who was sent to Guyana through the London Missionary Society. John Smith was arrested, charged, and condemned to execution for promoting discontent and dissatisfaction in the minds of African slaves, for exciting the slaves to rebel, and for failing to notify the authorities that the slaves intended to rebel. As I noted, John Smith was given the death sentence. However, before he could be executed, he perished in prison from consumption in February 1824.
A man walks on his farm the morning after a thunderstorm. He sees broken headstones pushing through the earth. He rubs the mud off and sees the inscriptions like hieroglyphics, reveal names, dates, ancestry, a cemetery in a field of corn. The local museum set is an old Negro cemetery. And all over, Negro cemeteries are surfacing, appearing in potato fields, appearing in wheat fields, appearing in fields of corn. Like Osiris, they rise from the earth in green resurrection. African skeletons shake the dust from their bones. Skulls with rattling teeth recite litanies of ancient woes. Tongues pout where none existed before and speak in funerary language. Griots rise from their graves and recount the stories of their journeys. Hafiz tongues uncleave and recite the surahs of the dawn. Babalaos emerge from the storm and divine with their shells and stones. I see the drummers, them a come, them a run, them a come, them a play the talking drum, the bata drum, the long drum, the funde, the kete, sending electric messages across this land. Toussaint Louvier too rise from his dungeon tomb and prophesy blood and fire. And he says, if a fire make it burn and if a blood make it run. And a woman named Dorinda sits on her tomb, a pipe clenched between her teeth, smoke curling from her lips as she recites and recites and recites the stories of her many passages, the stories of her many transformations, and all over, in Halifax, in Havana, in Montego, in Rio, in Edmonton, in Kingston, in Kingstown. They say, give us strength, and we say, rise up, fallen fighters, rise up, fallen fighters, rise up, fallen fighters, rise up, 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 up. Thank you.
The history of enslavement is not just about the lament of the problems and the groanings for the long decades of struggle to end the slave trade and to end the legal enslavement of Africans. We also have much to celebrate and wisdom to gain from ways in which Africans showed resilience and ways in which Africans were able to experience joy even in the midst of dire circumstances. They found ways to cooperate, sharing financial resources, and that still obtains in the Caribbean and in places in the Caribbean diaspora. One such method is known as partner or susu, where a group of people will get together to put together money, and each will have a draw in turn. Many people have built houses, sent children to school through these informal saving schemes. Then there are shared work days in Jamaica called Day for Day diggings, where small farmers would go and voluntarily help their neighbors to dig, to prepare the land, and to harvest. We also have a heritage where the village raised the child. And in the past, certainly, all adults in a community were called aunties and uncles and understood their role as being participants in the raising, the nurture, and the protection of children. Then we had local leaders, black ministers called daddies in the old days, village lawyers, perhaps the person who had most education, but who would exercise leadership to help the community to prosper. Religion, music, and dance are part of this heritage of resilience and part of the claiming of joy as a birthright of all human beings.
And now we have the Caribbean Rhythm Dance Group. performing for the Jamaican Cultural Association of Nova Scotia in honor of Jamaica Independence Day.
Mr. Bill Van have one party, him none want fi rule. Come we go buy pretty silver herring figures you never am buried ban. What she make it buy make it see ma, what she make it see ma make it buy. What she make it buy make it see ma Nancy girl lip on the rocks one penguin. 3 times 10 not 30, girl and boy them a flirty. Sing me the tune of Bessie Bansa, make we dance Bessie Band and Kalani. What she make it buy make it see ma, what she make it see ma make it buy. What she make it buy make it see ma Nancy girl lip on the rocks one penguin. 4 times 10 not 40, girl and boy them a hearty. Come we go down Montego Bay, fi go juke foot juke and do the twist. What she make it buy make it see ma, what she make it see ma make it buy. What she make it buy make it see ma Nancy girl lip on the rocks one penguin. 5 times 10 not 50, Bill man party so thrifty. Berry band super erin fry, if you know me it crack your berry eye. What she make it buy make it see ma, what she make it see ma make it buy. What she make it buy make it see ma Nancy girl lip on the rocks one penguin. What she make it buy make it see ma Nancy girl lip on the rocks one penguin. What she make it buy make it see ma Nancy girl lip on the rocks one penguin. Buggy broke and the asphalt down. The buggy broke, the buggy broke, the buggy broke and the asphalt down. They ask it up, they ask it up, they ask it up and him gallop gone, him gallop gone, him gallop gone, him gallop gone pa Miss Maryland, Miss Maryland, Miss Maryland. The ass a char up Miss Maryland, Miss Mary Pan a junker stick, Miss Mary Pan's up a junker stick. She fling this stick, she fling this stick, she fling this stick and bush a get lick, bush a get lick, bush a get lick, bush a get text and him pan a brick. A fight wine broke, a fight wine broke, fight wine broke in a jackass town. And all because the buggy broke and the asphalt down. The buggy broke, the buggy broke, the buggy broke and the asphalt down. The buggy broke, the buggy broke, the buggy broke and the asphalt down.
Higher, higher, there's nothing everywhere.
But the Freedom March continues. The march started with the abolition of the slave trade and the abolition of slavery. But there were other struggles for voting rights, the struggle against segregation, the struggle against institutional racism, and the struggle against mental slavery. In the Caribbean, people sought to exercise their freedom and to gain well-being in many ways. They traveled widely to find work, to Cuba, to Panama, to Britain, to the United States, and of course to Canada. Within countries, former enslaved persons sought to establish independent communities where they could flourish. And the Africville community established in the 19th century in Nova Scotia is one such example.
One white for their spirit that still inspires us today.
Both within countries and with those who migrated. The church played an important role in helping to organize Black communities, in helping to build leadership and to foster collaboration for all the people. Education was a key vehicle for social mobility amongst African peoples all over the New World. People of African ancestry wanted progress for themselves and for their children, whether it meant traveling or not. Someone even said Britain was experiencing colonization in reverse.
What a joyful news, Miss Mattie. I feel like my heart going burst. Jamaica people colonizing England in reverse. By the hundred, by the thousands, from country and from town. By the shipload, by the plane load. Jamaica is England bound. Them a pour out of Jamaica. Everybody future plan is to get a big time job and settle in the motherland. What a island, what a people. Man and woman, old and young. Just a pack them bag and baggage and turn history upside down. Some people don't like travel, but to show them loyalty, them all are open up cheap fare to England agency. And week by week, them shipping off them countrymen like fire to immigrate and populate the seat of the empire. Wanna see how life is funny? Wanna see the turnabout? Jamaica live fi box bread out of English people mouth. For when them catch a England and start play them different role, some will settle down for work and some will settle for the dole. Jane say the dole is not so bad because them paying she £2 a week to find a job that suit her dignity. Me say Jane will never find work at the rate what she da look. For all day she stay on infant couch and read love story book. What a devilment of England. Them face war and brave the worst. But I wondering how them going stand colonizing in reverse. Ay, ay, ay. But all them people who pack up them bag and things and gone a foreign land still have a problem, you know. Because England, America, Canada nice. Me not tell you no lie. But when we remember sweet, sweet Jamaica, what a come away. Warm gold sunshine, deep blue sea, hilltop kiss in the sky. When me remember Jamaica beauty, water come a me eye. Roadside jerk pan, ackee and saltfish, breadfruit where roast and fry. Herring sprat, curry goat, sugar cane and mango pile high. When me remember how Jamaica food sweet, water come a me eye. And to tell the truth, all my mouth start spring water that me start remember the food, you know. Rich loud laughter, vibrant music and culture, howdy thank you goodbye. When me remember Bunununus Jamaicans, water come a me eye. Say me miss Jamaica, me miss it bad, me not tell you no lie. When me remember sweet, sweet Jamaica, water come a me eye. Say me miss Jamaica, me miss me hard, me not tell you no lie. When me remember sweet, sweet Jamaica, water come a me eye. Say me miss Jamaica, me miss it bad, me not tell you no lie. When me remember sweet, sweet Jamaica, water come a me eye. When me remember sweet, sweet Jamaica, water come a me eye.
One of the main tools of enslavement and colonization was a strategy called divide and rule. Africans were encouraged to work against each other. Families and ethnic groups were deliberately split. In some cases, a few were given a little bit more privilege and the ability to exercise authority over other Africans. These were some of the things that fostered disunity and encouraged conflict within African communities. An important figure in countering this divide and rule philosophy was Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Born in Jamaica and now established as a national hero, Garvey established the United Negro Improvement Association in 1914. He advocated unity for Africans on the continent and Africans overseas. He advocated a positive self-esteem, knowledge of the achievements of great African empires, financial independence, and appreciation of African aesthetics. There was a religious arm of the Garvey movement, and one expression of that religious arm was the African Orthodox Church established in Cape Breton in the Maritimes. The UNIA had women in leadership long before the British Empire offered universal adult suffrage. Both Garvey's wives, Amy Ashwood Garvey and Amy Jakes Garvey, were outstanding leaders in their own right. Garvey said famous words echoed in the music of Bob Marley: "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery." How do we establish this emancipation from mental slavery, and how do we collaborate for progress? Well, this means to solidarity is something that is discussed and contested among Africans. For some, everybody who is Black is an African and should identify in that way. Others point to the complexity of heritage, particularly for Africans in the diaspora, whose ancestry would include indigenous, European, and Asian blood. As one person put it, how do we come to terms with the grandfathers who sold us and the grandfathers who bought us.
My name is Jacinth Butterfield. I was born in Jamaica. I'm currently a member of the executive of the Jamaica Cultural Association of Nova Scotia. I'll be performing a poem by the late Louise Bennett Coverley, aka Miss Lowe. It's entitled Back to Africa. Back to Africa, Miss Matty. You don't know where they say. You have to come from somewhere first before you can go back there. Me know say that your great-great-great-grandma was African. But Miss Matty, don't your great-great-great-grandpa was Englishman? Then your great-grandpa father by your father's side was Jew. And your grandpa by your mother's side was Frenchy parlez-vous. But the balance of your family, your whole generation, uno all born down a bun ground, uno all is Jamaican. That is where you going, Miss Matty. Oh, you view the countenance, and between you and the Africans, there is great resemblance. But then if you go askant to that, then all the blue-eyed white Americans who for great-grandfather was Englishman must go back to England. What a would a devil of a buck and boar, rig jig and palam pam, if the whole world start to go back where then great-grandpa come from. If a hard time you they run from, then take your chance. But Matty, do make sure you know where you come from so that you have somewhere to come back to. Galang a foreign, seek out your fortune, but do no bother tell nobody say that you are go seek out your homeland, cause right there so you're there. Aye, aye, aye.
We are here and alive. How do we take up the baton? What legacy do we leave for our children, for our children's children, and for generations yet to come? The United Nations declared 2015 to 2024 the decade for people of African descent, and encouraged us all to reflect on the contribution of African nations to the development of humanity and to progress across the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has come and highlighted some of the social, psychological, financial, and other challenges, as well as opportunities that Black people face today. We each have a part to play. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey, Oprah asked Nelson Mandela, how can you not be bitter? How can you not just want to hurt white people? To this, Mandela replied, you have a limited time to stay on earth. You must try and use that period for the purpose of transforming your country into what you desire it to be: democratic, non-racial, and a non-sexist country. This is a great task, he said. So for us is the challenge to greater teamwork, building on the strengths of our ancestors. And to use a metaphor from sporting, to be sure that as we as a team receive what they have done before, as we plan for future generations, let's make sure that we don't drop the ball.
Time to celebrate. We are one team. So you don't drop the ball. celebrate on the ends. Exhale, we live again, but don't drop the ball.
Celebrate